Okay, so at this time, I'd like to introduce our speaker, Chandra Knabel. She is an experienced enterprise architect with a passion for leveraging technology to drive business transformation. She currently serves as an enterprise architect in SAP's Customer Innovation Office. Before joining SAP, she held the position of Director of Enterprise Architecture for a North American beverage distributor. And we were hearing about that at the dinner before this event. So her career actually spans more than 25 years, and it spans several industries and government. She is an ardent advocate for women and underrepresented populations in the STEM fields. She actively volunteers with Girls Who Code. She mentors aspiring STEM professionals. She has also authored a thesis on intervention techniques to increase gender diversity in the field of enterprise architecture through Penn State University. She holds a Bachelor of Science degree in Management Science, one of my favorite topics, and Statistics, Decision Information Systems from the University of Maryland, and a Master of Professional Studies in Enterprise Architecture and Business Transformation from Penn State University. And that's the alma mater of several people here, as I understand it. So with no further delay, please welcome Chandra Knabel.
Well, thank you for having me. This is something that I'm very passionate about, and I am very interested to tell you guys more about Girls Who Code and some other ideas that I can add in along the way. Okay. I guess I need to do that. Okay, so she had the formal introduction. So like I said, I work for SAP. SAP is a global software company, if you haven't heard of us. It's a German-owned company. I've been there a little under 2 years. I decided after working in corporate IT for 31 years, I would just change careers because I thought it was going to be kind of the same career, but it turns out working for a software company is very different than working in corporate IT. But that was kind of a cool thing to do at age 54, totally change careers. So it's challenging, but a very interesting job. She talked about Penn State. That's already in there. I wasn't sure she was going to talk about that. The only reason why I put that up there really is because of the work that I did. We had to do a research project as part of my master's program, and that's what I decided to do. Because I was an enterprise architect for 10 years, and I'd go to these conferences and I look around the room and I'm like, where are all the women? Where are all the people of color? I don't understand. It was really odd to me. And so I had a feeling it was bad, and then I researched it and figured out it was bad. And then I kind of wanted to figure out, well, what can we do about it? I am a volunteer with Girls Who Code. Somebody asked me at dinner, how did I get into that? And my story is that I was a Girl Scout leader for 8 years. My daughter quit after 7 years. So I did it a year later, and I would have kept doing it if she wanted to do it. And so I said I had a Girl Scout size hole in my heart. And so I went looking for something to do. I'm a technology person. I've always done mentoring just naturally, always ran our intern program. So I have a lot of interest in helping youth and the local high school and things like that. And I found a Girls Who Code. I didn't want to do a club in my neighborhood because I live in a pretty affluent neighborhood, and I wanted to find some place where the parents didn't have the money or time to maybe do these type of activities with their kids. So I looked in the easiest area for me, which is Baltimore City. So I ended up finding a club actually in the middle of the projects in a really, really bad part of town. And my husband was really thrilled that I was going to drive there every Saturday. But anyway, it ended up being an awesome experience. So I'll tell you more about that. And some of you probably know this already. I put the fun fact. I just figured that would be interesting. For people that meet me, they expect me to be Indian because Chandra means moon in Sanskrit. And my dad just picked it out of a book because the meaning was she outshines the stars. And that's how I got my name. And it turns out I have lots of Indian friends, and I've worked with lots of Indian folks over the years. So that's always the first question that they ask. Well, actually, normally they say, do you know your name? And I said, yeah, I know. Funny story, I'm looking for a car and I got an email from somebody named Chandra the other day. And anyway, my husband said, well, I think maybe you should buy the car from Chandra, because Chandra's sending Chandra an email. And that was like the first time that had ever happened to me. So here's my story. This is my brother, who is, a pain, as you can tell by this picture. And he's a year and a half older than me. And my story relates to Girls Who Code. And so I just wanted to share it. So I grew up in a house with technology people. My dad worked for the government. He worked for the Justice Department and ran their data center. And my mom ended up doing government consulting. But my parents were divorced when I was pretty young. And I lived with my dad and my brother. And so we had, I was telling somebody I had a punch card machine in my basement and we had piles of punch cards that we played with, and we got a Commodore 64 very, very early on. And my brother and I both hopped on there and, started playing around with it. And then almost immediately, I decided that my brother was going to be way better at it than I was, and I might as well not even try. So I stopped. And that is what Girls Who Code is all about, is trying to stop that process. Because I think this picture, I was probably 10. So you're about to go to middle school, and that's when your self-confidence really just takes a nosedive. And so Girls Who Code, they used to have clubs that were only 6th through 12th graders, but now they have 3rd through 5th. Which is what I focused on when I did Girls Who Code, because I actually think that that's a more important time. So that's my story. And the best part of the story is that my brother didn't end up getting into technology. I did. So that's the funny part of the story. But so it didn't really stop me, but it stopped me for quite a while. And I just, that feeling of I can't do it well enough. He's going to be better than me. And that's where the founder of Girls Who Code has this saying. It's called Brave, Not Perfect. She has written a book about it, and she has an awesome TED Talk if you ever want to go and watch it. And so that's the thing, is that girls are really brought up to believe that we have to do everything perfectly, whereas boys are kind of, I'll try it. If it doesn't work, I'll try something else. I'm sure you guys have heard of this dynamic where women won't apply for a job unless they have 90% of the things that the job says it needs, whereas men tend to apply for, maybe they have 20% or something. So that is a dynamic that I think starts really early on. So why should we work on empowering girls in tech? And these are actually stats from Girls Who Code, from their website. I think they're maybe a little bit dated, but I don't know if you guys are aware that in 1995, 37% of the computer scientists were women. By 2017, that had dropped to 24%. And actually, it is 22% now. That was a projection when I pulled these numbers. It was a couple of years ago. Yeah. So that's pretty bad. And we know, you guys are all in the technology field. We know that the demand already outpaces the supply, right, of computer scientists and just technology in general. So that's a problem. And there's other reasons why not having that diversity is a problem. So the chart on the right shows the participation of girls as they age in computer science activities. So it starts out like 66%. That's pretty high, right? 2/3 of girls are interested in technology. Maybe they participate in some activities and things like that. But then by the time they get to middle school, it's in half of that, right? So it's 1/3, and then we're down to 4%. 4%. That's crazy. I do this thing at the high school where it's like mock job interviews, and then they have these like career tables when the kids are waiting to do their interviews, and I've done this for years. And I do the computer science thing, and I remember I had this girl come up to me. I don't understand. Why do computer jobs pay so much? And I was like, do you know about supply and demand? And she didn't want to hear it, but this is a thing, right? There's a lot of demand, and it's a really good career field, as you guys all know. So, beyond what is the right thing to do for society and for the people themselves, there's actually a lot of benefits for diversity. And when I was doing my research, you know, I found out I kind of knew it intuitively, but I found a lot of data, you know, where studies have been shown, you know, like having limited diversity, having a more diverse team results in better results. Okay. I'm sure you guys have heard about some of the biases that have been discovered in, I don't know, like facial recognition, you know, where, I don't know, certain technologies are only trained on male faces. And then all of a sudden it doesn't know how to recognize a woman's face, for example. So there's a lot of biases that are getting introduced. And now with AI, it's going to be exponential as far as the impact of that. You know, half of the population's impact and their, you know, perspective, their, you know, their requirements, whatever, aren't even being considered, you know, if they're not part of the team. I mean, right now I'm on a team of 15. My boss is a female, which is really awesome. And she's a great boss. There's one other female on my team. So, you know, whatever the percentage that works out to, it's very common that I will be in meetings every day that I'm the only woman. It happens to me every single day, multiple times a day. And I'm sure that you probably have similar experiences. Yep. You know, and then it's kind of a downward spiral a bit. I don't want to be, you know, too negative, but you know, you go into a workplace and you are the only female. Like for a long time, I worked at a company and I was the director of enterprise architecture in that role. And I was the only female director for 4 or 5 years. So I had no one at my level or above me that was female. So, you know, for example, you know, they played golf together, they went out on boats together, they, you know, did whatever the guys wanted to do. But you know, those weren't activities that I would typically do, but I didn't really have any other women at my level to kind of, I'll call it, network with. And that was difficult. That was difficult for me. And so if a woman comes in and that's the culture that she's in, she's not going to stay. So you do all this work to, you know, there's a lot of focus on diversity and recruiting, but if you don't have it once you come in, it's not gonna last. And then, you know, one of the things that we found, or that I found in looking at research on this, is that, you know, the innovative ideas that come out of diverse teams are much better. And I think I remember reading one study about this, and I think this is really makes sense. So if you have a group of people that all think the same way, okay, whatever that group could be, and you're going to prepare, you know, a proposal for that group, you kind of prepare knowing that they're going to agree with you, right? So you don't prepare as well because, you know, well, you know, we always agree, we see everything the same way, right? So I'm going to come to you and I'm going to give you a proposal, say, hey, how about we do things this way? If I know that you look at things differently, I'm going to prepare my argument or my, you know, my proposal or whatever a lot better. And that is one of the key reasons why diverse teams produce better outcomes, because people they're better prepared to, you know, to be able to have those different viewpoints. And in the end, the result is better. So it's not just about what the right thing is.
This is cool. I found a meetup.
But the last bullet is really around, you know, it's really about economic empowerment. Okay. So it's not just about the person who has the job. I met a young woman when I was volunteering with Girls Who Code, who was like a first generation college student. And she lived in Baltimore City and she worked for Google, which is awesome, right? Good for her. But not only good for her sister, good for her mom. You know, it impacted her entire family, one job in technology. And I mean, it really, really has an impact beyond, you know, just that one person. And I know for me, it's been an awesome career. And it's given me a lot of, you know, ability to chart my own course, right? I don't have to be dependent on somebody else. That's really important for women. So I really came here to talk about Girls Who Code. It's an awesome organization. If we have time, we can look through their website. They have a lot of great information on their website as far as they do a lot about sharing stories about women in technology, all kinds of technologies, all different kinds of STEM. And even like on their Facebook page and on LinkedIn, if you follow them on either one of those platforms, they constantly are sharing stories about different women, which I think if you know any younger women, you know, that you want to be inspired, I would suggest that they go and follow them. Probably, I'm sure they're on Instagram too, but it's they do an awesome job of kind of sharing that kind of information. So in 2012, Reshma Sanjui, do you guys know her? Do you know that name? Reshma Sanjui? You don't know her?
Yeah, we know about her.
Okay. Some people do. So I think she ran for Congress or something, and she was trying to get into politics, and anyway, she didn't get elected. And so kind of, I guess after that happened, she said, well, I got to do something to make an impact. And so this is something that she cared about. And so she started Girls Who Code, and it's grown tremendously from there. She's no longer the CEO, or maybe she's still the CEO, but she has a president now. So she's not as actively involved in it, but she's still, you know, obviously on the board and all of that. So they have several programs. The main program is clubs. So the clubs are usually associated with a school, a library, or a church, or some type of community organization. And that they have two kind of curriculums. One is 3rd through 5th, and the other is 6th through 12th graders. And it's, you know, the people don't have to know computer science. Obviously, it would be good, especially for the 6th through 12th graders, because they get more advanced. 3rd through 5th, it's pretty easy to, you know, you don't have to go too far with them. But that's really the heart of the program. They also have these summer immersion programs, which are free to attend. And they're held at a lot of college campuses around the country. And then they also have what's called college loops. So that's to kind of give the girls that are in college connections and a club to be able to, you know, have a supportive community. And they do have partners from a lot of technology companies. My company does a little bit, but Apple, Google, Microsoft, like all kinds of technology companies are investing in them. And then they also do advocacy. And I have a picture I'll show you. I'll tell you about that. So I mentioned, I just wanted to, so I just have some pictures and some stories. So this is the Girls Who Code Club that I was working with. So, you know, the one on the right, that picture is from the club where we met at the church. And then in the middle, we would do field trips. So this was like it was called Give Back Hack. So that's a combination of technology and community organizers to do good things for the community. And they invited us to come. And then the other picture is from University of Maryland College Park, which is a top 10 computer science program, believe it or not, in-state tuition for them, less than an hour from their house. None of them had ever been there. So they have an open house in May, and I said, you must go. And so we took them, and they had an awesome time. And they could go in-state tuition there. It is a good school. So when I was volunteering, or as a volunteer, I was invited to do some lobbying on Capitol Hill on behalf of Girls Who Code. So they had done some studies about tracking computer science participation by gender across the country. And this is obviously to know, you know, what is that saying? You can't measure it. If you don't measure it, you can't manage it. So they wanted to know what is the participation at the different ages. And so that was what this was about. They had a briefing book, and then we went and dropped these briefing books off at all of the female senators and congresswomen in Capitol Hill. And then you can see there was a talk, and it was a bipartisan. There were some Democrats and some Republicans that spoke. The woman in the white, I don't remember her name, but she's from West Virginia, and I had a long conversation with her. She was very interesting. Anyway, this was a whole event, and then you can see all the girls were there. And it was just a great experience for the girls. And so if you were to volunteer with Girls Who Code, which by the way, 40% of the volunteers at Girls Who Code are men. So that was one of the questions that I have gotten. So
Could you say that again?
40% of the volunteers with Girls Who Code are men. Because if you're looking for technologists, you're going to have to get some men. So, and we did have men that were part of our club. So these are some just lessons that I learned along the way working with Girls Who Code, and why I think their model works. The first thing is around the power of a supportive environment. Actually, this next picture was actually from this exact location. So the girl in the turquoise jacket, we were doing HTML and we were making little web pages. Okay, these are fourth graders, and and they all had their own computer, and they were all doing their own web page, and we were working on the HTML and little CSS, and she messed up something and she didn't save her work, and she started crying. And all the little girls went around her and started hugging her and saying, it'll be okay, it'll be okay. And then, they sort of talked her off the cliff, and then she fixed it and all that. And I thought, that is what this is about, is the encouragement. And so, I really think that power of the supportive, I think if I had had a sister or my mom that was sitting there on that Commodore 64 with me and encouraging me, I think I wouldn't have quit. Because I just had my brother, and he was, whatever, older brother. And I just think that would have made a difference. And so I think that, you guys in your spheres could create a supportive environment. You don't have to have it be through Girls Who Code, right? But I think it's really important, especially for women. Brave Not Perfect is Reshma. This is Reshma Sanjui, and this is her book. And that is the motto of Girls Who Code. And the whole idea is that, girls are trained to want to do things only if they can do them perfectly. And as you guys all know, technology isn't like that, right? Like, you have to be able to try things, it breaks, you have to fix it, and you can't give up because it's tough, right? It's tough sometimes. So you need a little resilience in there. So those girls, these girls in Baltimore City, every single one of them had a story. One was in foster care. One's, mom was on disability. One mom, whatever, just got divorced and had to find a place to live. And they were dealing with so many other issues, but yet they still made time on Saturday morning to come and learn to code. So, which is pretty cool. Maybe this is a very famous picture of President Barack Obama with a young boy that said, "Does your hair feel like mine?" And he said, "Well, why don't you go feel it?" I honestly never thought this was this important. I just really didn't understand. And then I started to see it through these girls' eyes. And I had a rule. I tried to have a speaker every week. And I had a rule. They either had to be a woman or they had to be a person of color, or both, preferably, because that's what the girls look like in my club. I just started to see how it really, really matters. And then I was at a CIO conference, and there was a woman up on stage who was middle-aged with curly hair, and she looked like me. And I was like, oh my gosh, I get it. I got it. And then I got it again personally. And I ran up to that lady and just started talking to her and connected with her. And it really made a difference for me. So I think that that's really important. Now, the volunteers don't have to all look like them, but provide opportunities so that they can see, somebody who's in technology that looks like them and understand that I actually can do that. And Girls Who Code does an awesome job of that, constantly publishing. I just looked at one, earlier today. It was an astronaut, first African-American woman astronaut. Awesome. Oops, went the wrong way. This is me with Reshma Sanjui. She's definitely a role model for me. And when we went and did the lobbying, I got to meet her. And what I realized was, when you're part of an organization like Girls Who Code, if it's something that you care about, you have a voice. Now, you guys are all part of IEEE or ACM. So you have that already. But it was something that I hadn't really thought about until I was there. And I thought, wow, I'm here, and my voice is amplified. And so I think, getting involved with an organization like that, that's a benefit that, can mean something. So these are really the ways that they suggest that if you want to help support Girls Who Code, these are all the ways that they, say that you can do it. Start a club, fundraise. They always want money. The money goes to support all the programs. They do not have a big staff. It's almost all volunteer, but they do have a staff. But you can partner with your workplace, and then, they call it campaigns. I'm going to call that like a special project, like doing the lobbying like I did. That was something. I mean, that was one day, I went down to DC. I live near DC, so it wasn't a big deal for me. But those are things. And then I added this one, hire people. Try to get a diverse candidate pool, even if, I'm not saying you should ever hire a woman or a person of color or underrepresented group just because of that, but you should include them in your interview pool. I know I was an enterprise architect at the last company I worked at for 10 years, and I interviewed, I don't know, at least 20 enterprise architects over those 20 years, because I would have openings and people would leave and change and all this sort of stuff. I never even got to interview a single woman until 2 months before I left. And I interviewed a woman, and guess who was the best candidate? The woman. And I hired her, and then I left. But anyway, but she's still there and she's doing great. But this is just really, especially like internships. I don't, if anybody is in a position to hire interns or, anything, do it. That's where it's really great, because then they get the experience, they have it on the resume, and then they can go get another job, and it's low risk, right? Because they're only there for a couple months. So if they don't work out, low risk. So then I just have some other intervention techniques beyond what is Girls Who Code. Maybe I should pause here. Does anybody have any questions about Girls Who Code? Or did I cover it enough? I would suggest you look at their website.
Roughly what percentage of the young women are doing it because they see it as an economic step up versus those people who say, oh, this looks intriguing, I like solving problems?
I would say a very low percentage. Now the parents, maybe, but I don't like the conversation that I had with the high school girl. She's asking me, well, why those jobs pay so well? And I was like, supply and demand. So yeah, I just don't think they think about that. They don't understand what it means. Yeah. I just don't think they think about it that way. My daughter's 20, and I'm not sure. I just, when they start working and they have to pay their bills and rent and all that stuff, and it all adds up, that's when it starts to click.
Because the programming is very tough. Maybe it's getting easier with ChatGPT, but you really need to kind of like it a lot, to stick through the frustration.
Yeah.
Maybe it's different, grade.
Yeah, no, the stick with itness and the grit is absolutely critical. That is a thing. And having that supportive community around you, like the little girl that was crying and her friends all came around and encouraged her. She didn't stop. She kept going. And that's, you got to have that. Maybe guys don't need that, but women appreciate it. I'm just going to say.
Yeah, just to piggyback on that, I don't want to interrupt, but it's also true that, say, when a girl struggles in math, for example, it's been reported that parents tend to not be as, say, concerned as they would be if a boy were to struggle in math. And I've heard, I don't know if there's research done on this or not, but I'm told that very often parents will get a tutor for a boy if he's struggling in math, whereas if a girl is struggling in math, they're not likely to. So there's that kind of expectation also.
I can agree with that. And you guys all know that math is the gateway to it, right? Like I was talking to somebody at dinner, that's kind of why I think it's important to start too with the 3rd through 5th graders, because once you get to middle school, you kind of decide, am I on the math track or am I not on the math track? And then if you're not on the math track, then when you get to high school, you're definitely not on the math track. And then if you try to go to college and you realize, like I did, that the major I wanted to do, I had to take a lot of math, and I wasn't very good at it because I kind of checked out like in 11th grade or something. I didn't, but without the math foundation, you can't do a lot of things.
We have a question online.
Okay.
That Levi asks, how do you get girls to travel to the meetings, right? How do you engage the girls to come back week after week for coding? Do you have a structured lesson plan?
Yes, yes. So Girls Who Code has tons of materials and content like that. I know for me personally, I took what I learned in Girl Scouts and applied it to Girls Who Code. So we had games, we had, you know, move around, do things. So yeah, I mean, you just take the creativity the older girls, they have a lot of self-paced materials and things like that. So once you get to, you know, sixth, seventh, eighth grade, they're more self-directed. But the younger girls, I mean, you gotta make it interesting. You know, we were doing crafts, but there was always like a coding aspect to it. I found this video last night when I was like putting this all together. I found this video where we had done, it was like loops and like repeat blocks on the whiteboard, and they did it with a dance. So they had like dance moves. They made this whole video, and it was all like, you know, loops and all this kind of stuff, but it was all using dance moves. So it's kind of like taking what they're interested in and then applying some technology to it. So yeah, I mean, it's a team effort. We had a lot of volunteers, you know, so, yes.
So the decreasing percentage, I'm sorry, the decreasing percentage that you showed in one of the other slides, I assume that's only in the US.
That's a good question. So in case you guys can't hear, he was asking if the percentage was from the US. I'm gonna guess it is because that number came from Girls Who Code, which primarily was US based. Now they've started to have a more of a global focus, but it probably is a US number. Yeah.
So I'm just curious, like, do you see a similar trend worldwide, or like is it just, I mean, is it very evident here in the US?
Yeah. I don't really know the statistics on that. I do know that in my field, which is enterprise architecture in the United States, it's 13% are women and 11% globally. So it's actually worse globally than it is in the US. Now, apparently in South America, it's like 50-50. I need to go down there and figure out what they're doing because, well, I mean, that would be a good reason to go there. But I don't know why. I just found that out recently. So I'm kind of curious about that. But yeah.
It's definitely better in China. There are a lot more females involved in IT at all levels.
Okay, interesting. I was just reading an article about South Korea and how they have a real problem with women working. Anyway, it's a whole long story, but it's all around, you know, they start their career and everything's fine, but once they want to start to have children, it's a problem. And then that's causing nobody wants to have kids. And then all of a sudden they realize, wait, you know, population problem. That's in South Korea. I was just reading about that yesterday. Even though they have 18 months of maternity leave, which is interesting. It's very generous. Anyway, I digress. So, when do we end? Do I have 10 minutes?
Yeah.
Okay, I just don't want to.
Fine.
Okay,
Fine.
I don't want to.
You can go 20 if you want.
Okay. So these are things that so I did this research project. It was pretty narrow based on enterprise architecture, but a lot of what I pulled from was just IT in general, other STEM fields. So I believe that these would relate to a broader perspective, not just enterprise architecture. So from my research, these are the top 5 intervention techniques. And then now we're talking about women, not children. Okay, not girls. But we could think about it maybe in a way of high school students or maybe college students. So, you know, having business and technical mentoring. So, you know, hopefully you guys are involved in mentoring of some kind. I know I talk to people all the time, like the hairdresser's sister and the person's friend. Oh, would you mind talking to them? Sure. You know, people reach out to me on LinkedIn, you know, just try to share your knowledge and reach out to people. Increase of awareness of the field. So, you know, within technology, there's so many different roles. And a lot of people think all it is programming. Now you guys are computer scientists, so that's probably your focus, but there's a lot of different roles in technology. And even if you don't think you want to be a programmer, you can do a lot of other things. I mean, I work for SAP. We have 110,000 people. around the globe. And of those people, I don't know, if I had to guess, I don't know how many, maybe it's 20,000 developers. I don't know. It's probably not more than that. There's lots of other roles that are available. So giving people the ability to develop their skills. So maybe somebody is a junior level and giving them self-directed skill development is impactful. We talked about supportive networks having like a facilitated peer. Don't just say, oh, well, the women, they'll get together, or the other represented groups will get together. No, there needs to be some structure and some thought to put into that. And then we talked about visible role models. I just can't say that enough. It just means so much. It just means so much to see somebody that's made it to where you think you want to go, that looks even a little bit like you, to say, I can do that. It's really important. So I talked about mentoring. I mean, I don't know. I guess it's just a vibe I get. I don't know why this happens to me, but people ask me a lot. Literally, it happened. My hairdressers tell me, blah, blah, blah. My sister's interested in cybersecurity. I said, okay, let's have a call. So I'll do that quite a bit, and I don't know if you guys do that, but, even those small little interactions can really make a difference to people. I had a young woman that was a QA tester that worked on my team, and we had a junior developer. She was really smart and quiet, kept to herself, really smart. We had a junior developer position that really didn't require experience, and she had a degree, but this job was open and she hadn't applied for it. And the next one morning I go over to her, I said, oh, you should apply for that job. I think you'd be really good at it. And she told me, and this is more than 20 years, or not 20 years, maybe 15 years later, she said to me that the night before you came to my desk, I told my husband, if just one person encourages me, I'm going to apply for that job. And that woman is an enterprise architect now. Sure. So she was a developer, then she was domain architect solution, I don't know, whatever. She went up the chain, the technical chain. And that was, not just because of me, but I did say that to her. And just that one comment kind of changed the direction of her career. So think about that. When you see people that have potential, just tell them, say it to them. Hey, I noticed you're really good at that. Maybe you should apply for that job, or maybe, whatever. I think it makes a big difference. I think people don't understand how the impact of just one little comment. Were you telling me about your neighbor? Yeah, just telling him, hey, I think you'd be good at that. You should try it, and then, oh, he's a smart guy. He thinks I should do it. It makes a difference. So, I think we talked about conferences is another way, networking, things like that. Even just coming to things like this, is good. So promoting awareness of technology careers. And I was trying to think about maybe things that you guys might be able to do. So partnering with your local high schools. I know I do this job fair thing, but talk to the guidance counselors at the middle and high schools to see how you could somehow maybe do a career talk about technology, and don't just talk about programming, talk about other things too. So they understand there's a lot of different roles. This second one, and I can share this link. This is a awesome website that is put on by the Department of Labor. And I have shown so many young, like high school age kids, this site. This site breaks it down by all the different, I'm looking at computer stuff, right? It breaks it down by all these different roles, what education you need, what job, what you actually do, what's the salary, what's the number of jobs today, what's the projected, and you can even break it down by state. So again, supply and demand, it's always about that, right? So, you can actually talk to somebody. I don't understand, what type of job I might want to do. Well, here, let's look at this. Okay, well, look, this job, I have so many people would tell me, I used to do these job fairs at a college, and kids, I'd say, oh, what are you interested in IT? Oh, I think maybe the help desk. I'm thinking, no, no, look at that website. What is that salary? I don't know. It's not all about money, but that's like 45,000. Look at some other jobs. It's a lot different, double or triple, right? Right. So, you start to show them that, oh, wow, they both need a degree. well, maybe not help desk, but you know what I mean? If you're gonna go and get a degree, why not, do their bigger things also. And then we talked about profiling successful women and highlighting those maybe in your circles. And then you guys were talking about like these things on the weekend, the different events that you have. I don't know if there's like a high school participant kind of thing that would be available, but I mean, that might be something to think about, is to open up and do some STEM events, to get.
I think at the TCF, they have some events there, some workshops, slots that are specifically for young people, right?
That is correct.
Okay. Yeah, so those are ideas that I had, and then these are just kind of just some other ideas. Like I just figured, I just throw a bunch of stuff out there, and maybe something will, I'm throwing some seeds out and see what takes root. I thought this was an interesting one to, try to get more people into computer science in high school, so that it doesn't seem like it's such a big deal to go do computer science at college. Like, oh, well, that wasn't so hard. I was pretty good at that. Maybe I should try for that, and somehow making it not seem like it's such a big deal to be able to do computer science at college. I think some people were, maybe I heard a little bit of talk about maybe partnering with educational, like K through 12 teachers. So from what I understand, there's a big shortage of them. And then they probably need help, honestly. Maybe you could volunteer, go in, I don't know, help them come up with a curriculum, maybe help do labs with them. I don't know, something to help them. I chose to work in an underserved area. I mean, some positives and negatives on that, but that's where, think about the impact that could have. It's a lot. So maybe think about the underserved areas around here, and then what you might do. The parents in my neighborhood are motivated to take their kids. They drive them all over the place to go to different activities and things like that. That's not the case everywhere, right? But motivating through the parents, I think, is a good idea, which is the last idea. And that's kind of like, if you create these events, parents will go out of their way to do that, because they understand the economic impact, even if their kids don't. So the last thing I want to talk about is what I referred to before, which is what I'm calling the leaky pipeline. And what I do is kind of like enterprise architecture, something you have to have been doing IT for a while, and then you do enterprise architecture. So, the first thing people will tell me is, well, there's not enough women in the pipeline, and that's why we don't have enough people in enterprise architecture. But it's more than just that. But there is this leaky pipeline, and I literally just got this statistic yesterday, read this article, and I thought, are you kidding me? 50% of women are likely to quit technology before the age of 35.
Wow.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you do all this work to get them to school, to get them hired, to get them, and then you lose them.
Well, most of the age is kind of suspect too, right?
That's about childbearing age, right? So I think there may be some connection with that, is what I'm thinking.
When they quit, they ever come back after that?
I don't know. I don't know. I certainly have people in my life that, like my next door neighbor was a technology person. She stayed home with her kids. She felt like she was so far out of it, she couldn't get back into it.
Yeah.
So.
But again, that's maybe the self-fulfilling prophecy sort of thing.
Yeah.
Where the women feel that more than the men do, they just go right back in.
Right,
they have a heart attack, then they come back to work. Yeah.
So anyway, so college, I just want to mention, so because you guys are maybe in this area, in the college area, I think once, you get women in computer science, she's there, you need to provide some connection so that she can have that supportive environment. So, connect her with a senior level, person or just try to create those connections. Girls Who Code does have these college loops, which I think are really good. But there could be other things you could do. We talked about this before, my mom worked in IT, and 3 times she had a really good job and she quit without another job because she couldn't take it anymore. She just couldn't take it. And so I saw that through her eyes. And I mean, I haven't had that experience, but I know that it's real. And these are kind of some of the challenges: gender stereotyping, having that male dominated culture. So, it's like everybody's doing things one way and then you just kind of stand out. You either act like everybody else or you feel like you don't belong. And the lack of work-life balance, I think that may be connected to the age, there's a perception like that enterprise architecture that you have to work tons of hours and it's this really stressful job. That isn't mostly true. So, sometimes there's a perception of a role that isn't, actually the way it really is. And then all of you can be allies. So this is where you really need to pay attention. I talked about encouragement, right? It's really important. Do you guys know what I mean? Can you think of a time when you've done that? Can you just give me an example?
Well, I do get asked a lot, and this even viewers questions about, sort of mentoring. So I'm always very happy to mentor, and I find that as I've gotten older, people seek out older mentors.
They do.
And
I love it.
Yeah, I love it. I mean,
Yeah.
it's like, it wasn't what I had expected as I got older that people would come to me and ask questions and want to, hear what my thoughts were.
Yeah.
So yeah, definitely I try to do that wherever I can. I'm also running a nonprofit initiative that I applied for funding, and it involves basically amateur radio, but to try to get people involved who are either or both youth between the ages of 12 and 18, and or female, but people of all ages can do it. Well, not below age 12 because they're just too young to do ham radio, but people of all ages can do it, and all genders. But we're really trying to encourage that because the field of amateur radio is essentially a lot of old men.
Yep.
So
Yep.
And what we're encouraging is bioengineers. So a special group, but many other groups as well. But in bioengineering, that is an engineering major where women actually flock to. It unlike some, like you saw with those numbers decreasing, bioengineering, as it's been picking up steam, it's almost about 50% females. So because of the bio part, so women like to be in these medical helping professions and things like that.
Cool.
So they rather usually in an engineering school like at Rutgers, it's in the engineering school, but and same thing at TCNJ. It's a subdivision, like you would have computer engineering and bioengineering. So it's a major, but it has just gotten huge. It's getting bigger and bigger because there's all of these things involving technology, in bioengineering, and especially, and that's why we're doing this with the bioengineers with this project, because radios are in everything. I mean, on your, wristwatch with pulse monitors and heart monitors and all this stuff. There's radios. It's antennas and radios.
Right.
So all of that stuff, it really is attractive to women. You just have to explain to them that yes, just because you're in this, you don't have to be male to get involved with ham radio.
Sure.
So we're finding they're flocking to it. So that's another way that I've been in.
Nice. And that's finding something that making a connection to something that you feel like they'd be interested in, and then getting them engaged. And then once you're engaged, it's a lot easier.
Right.
Because then you have the relationships.
Yeah. Then we're adding that component of, you're already interested in bioengineering. You should be interested in radio, and here's why.
Sure.
And so we're we're licensing them. I mean, it's really fantastic.
Cool.
So,
So that's a great example. That took a lot of work. I'm just saying, like, what she just talked about, that sounds like it takes a lot of
it takes a
time
lot of work. We got a
to encourage somebody.
$200,000 grant, and the project will be going for a total of about 5 years.
Okay,
So
so that's
it's a lot.
great. It's awesome that you're doing that. Not everybody has time to do that. It does
Right.
not take very much time to be an encourager. I'm telling you, every single person in here should be able to do this.
Yeah.
And really, you know, if you're in an environment where you see this gender bias, you know, maybe the woman on the team is being asked to take notes every time, or being given the more tactical versus strategic tasks, or whatever, call it out. And on her behalf and on the team's behalf, say, well, how about we rotate that? I'll take it this time, let her do it next time, whatever, you know, call it out when you see it. And then provide opportunities with support. I had this great example where there was a young woman that applied for an enterprise architecture job, and she didn't get it because she was perceived as being quiet. She was Indian, and culturally for her, she felt like that was how she was brought up to be. And it was really hard. She had to kind of go out of her comfort zone. And that leader saw something in her that the other people didn't see. They interviewed her, she didn't get the job. But he went back to her and said, no, wait a minute. I think you can do this job, and I'm going to give you some opportunity to show that you can do it. So he gave her some extra, I'll call it like homework, extra credit, whatever. She took on these projects, did it on her own time, and gave her an opportunity with support to present this information to the same people that were going to be interviewing the next time he had a position open. And then when he had the position open, who got the job? It was her. Because she had shown, he saw it in her, but he didn't just say, oh, you should apply next time. He was very intentional about the way he did that. So think about that. Maybe you'll have some opportunities to be able to do that in your own sphere of influence. That's it.
All right. Thank you.